Welcome back, guys, to the Master and Apprentice video / podcast. Today, we're going to get into the politics of Star Wars. Before you click out of this video or this podcast and you're like, bored or whatever because it's politics. Politics are probably the most important part of Star Wars. It's what creates all the events that we see in Star Wars. It's why what we have in Star Wars is even a story, right? And it's actually quite interesting if you learn all of it together. So today we're going to give you a timeline of all of the politics and why things happened behind the scenes. And this isn't really hard research. This is just, if you paid really close attention, you will see this. We have this in 5 acts. This is just all the stuff for prequels. We're doing part 2 and a part 3 of this video for the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy. With that being said, we'll get right into Act 1. This is before we see the Phantom Menace, the Republic, which is kind of like a U.S. government. There's a chancellor, which is kind of like our president, right? He doesn't make all the decisions. He can make some decisions, but it has to go through the Senate. And the same thing, the Senate doesn't make all the decisions. They have to vote on it, and once they do, it goes to the president, right? So it's the same thing. They have the chancellor and the Senate, right? They don't have the judicial, so they don't have 3 branches. They have the 2, right? And each system is represented in the Senate, those who are all in the Republic at least. And then there are the Jedi, right? We all know the Jedi, of course. The Jedi are kind of like a police for the Republic. They are sworn peacekeepers, but they are also sworn protectors for the Republic. So they're almost like mercenaries in a way, right? They don't really believe in fighting, but they are sworn protectors for the Republic. So they are the enforcers for the Republic. So kind of like cops. And like I said, the Chancellor they don't have all the powers. They only have a limited amount of powers, but they do have powers. And same thing with the Senate. With all that being said, right before we see the Phantom Menace start, the Republic started a new act. It was to tax all the trade routes in the Outer Rim, right? We have the Mid Rim, Inner Rim, and the Outer Rim. And the Outer Rim, all those trade routes was controlled by the Trade Federation, right? Trade Federation was a corporation that essentially were like UPS, right? They delivered your goods, they delivered all of that, right? They controlled that. So they were making the money off of it, right? With the taxation, they were starting to lose a lot of money, right? So, because the Outer Rim it was too far from the Inner Rim, right? So, for the longest time, the Republic didn't control that. They didn't care. It was left to the Trade Federation. But they saw how much of an advantage the Trade Federation was taking. So, the Republic started a taxation on the trade routes in the Outer Rim, which obviously the Trade Federation did not like. Leading us into Act 2.
Act 2 is starts in the Phantom Menace. So when we actually see the movie start, as Sammy was saying, there's a taxation on the trade routes, which was not very well liked by the Trade Federation. So in protest to this, they made a blockade on Naboo, which is exactly what we see in the Phantom Menace, which leads up to all the action. Just shows you that the politics really are pulling the strings for the whole plot and all this. Anyway, as a result of this, the Chancellor Valorum is removed from office and Palpatine is voted in. This is, because of all these events, the CIS is created. CIS is the Confederacy of Independent Systems. Basically, Chancellor Palpatine was talking about how, hey, no one's doing anything for Naboo. Naboo is sitting there. Naboo is dying. Chancellor Valorum will not act on it. And then I believe it was Senator Amidala to make the
Queen Amidala at the time.
Queen Amidala at the time. Sorry, Queen Amidala to make a big push, backed by a lot of other characters we see at the time, like Senator Organa. Just a whole bunch of people. They pushed, hey, Palpatine will actually make a difference. He will act on it. So then they voted Chancellor Valorum out, and then they voted Palpatine in, and that leads us to Act 3.
So the CIS is a Confederacy of Independent Systems, like Athens said. It's essentially, if you guys have any knowledge of the Civil War, right? when states started seceding, it was a confederacy. That's essentially what the CIS was, right? But instead of just being states that joined, it was backed by corporations like the Trade Federation and I forget who created, but the Droid Army, right? All these big corporations, they were funding it because they were getting screwed in the Outer Rim, so they didn't like this, right? And as this, we see Dooku behind the scenes. Palpatine is playing all this into his hand. Obviously, we see this in the films. Dooku takes not control, but he takes leadership of the CIS and starts a campaign to start persuading systems in the Outer Rim to secede from the Republic and join the CIS, right? They don't want to be a part of the Republic. They don't want to be controlled by the Republic, right? This is their voice. This is their cry for help. They want to be free, essentially, right? So, out of all of this, the tensions are high in the Republic, right? The Republic doesn't want to fall apart, right? But a bunch of systems, especially in the Outer Rim, are trying to secede, right? But we know that Dooku, the Trade Federation, other corporations, which we had just seen on the blockade of Naboo, Trade Federations don't have the greatest intentions. So the Jedi are sent out secretly to investigate all of this, right? In these investigations, they find out there's a droid army, right? Right? And at this time, many systems start to secede from the Republic. They start to form the CIS, and they find this giant droid army on the planet of Geonosis, right? Which is a planet that's part of the CIS. Right? Also, during all of this, there's a secret clone army that is now put into the hands of the Republic, right? With tensions crazy high, systems seceding, the CIS gaining power and power, stronger and stronger, and they have now this massive army. Palpatine is given emergency powers, right? Because he doesn't have these kind of powers. It has to be voted in. This army can't just start, right? They can't just start a war. They can't just have this army that came out of nowhere. They have to vote it in, right? But senators are freaking out. They don't want more. They don't want the Republic to fall. So the Chancellor is giving emergency powers, and right as he's given emergency powers, he puts the clone army into play, right? And then right from the get-go, they're starting to they want to stop the CIS from either forcing systems to leave or persuading systems to leave. They're trying, essentially like the Civil War, they're trying to keep the Republic into peace. So essentially, starting the Clone Wars is a galactic civil war, right? The Republic trying to keep the Republic together, trying to keep systems, right? Because the CIS isn't also, they're not just trying to persuade systems to leave, they're trying to force systems to leave, right? They don't want the Republic to be in play. Well, the Republic wants to, not keep the power, but they want to keep the unity of the Republic, right? Which is what we see as the Clone Wars. That's what all of this has started, leading us into Act 4.
So yeah, this time Palpatine, of course, behind the scenes, we've seen in the films, is playing both sides, but that's why he created all this to happen. He was like, okay, I need to get emergency power so I can have control of everything. So he created this chaos so that he would be voted emergency powers, which is just makes a ton of sense. In real life, you'll see this too with wars. Oftentimes, presidents will just be given emergency powers so they can do this, that, whatever. So the CIS is continually pulling systems from the Republic, obviously persuasion, force, and as many other Outer Rim systems fall or are persuaded, the Republic does its best to protect the systems in the Outer Rim, but quickly is a losing battle for the Republic. Keep in mind, the inner rim is where Coruscant is. The middle rim is some other planets, and the outer rim. That is off the grid. That would be like I don't know.
That's like Alaska and a Hawaii for us, right?
Yeah. It would be so hard to control. If Hawaii wanted to start their own country, I mean, it would take tons of time and money to go all the way over there to convince them otherwise. And think about, that's one state right there. Imagine there's thousands of them that distance from us. Like, it's an impossible amount because the farther out you go, the more planets, more systems there are. And they couldn't control them in the first place. They didn't want to they didn't tax them. They only taxed the inner and middle rim. So once they put the outer rim tax out there, they were like, okay, I think we have enough power here. They did not at the time, at least not to consistently do it. So quickly becomes a losing battle for the Republic. Meanwhile, more clones are being pumped out, and Palpatine is getting more powers. It just shows you that Palpatine behind the scenes is making this problem so he can solve it with this clone army that he can end up using. But taking away the Palpatine pulling strings on both sides, this is a very logical war for both sides. The separatists and or I guess CIS is
the CIS. The separatists is a nickname for the CIS,
Yeah.
right? They're separating from the Republic. That's why they're called the separatists.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, they're trying, because both sides have their logic, which is a lot of what the Clone Wars will show you. It'll show you that the separatists aren't all bad. Like Ahsoka had that one episode where she had that learning lesson or whatever, because they have good intentions. They're like, yeah, we didn't have this tax before, now it's a bit ridiculous. Think about it. That's exactly why America seceded to be their own 13 colonies or whatever. Like, this happens in real life. This is very relatable.
And he's very right on that. You see both sides, right? The Republic is trying to keep the Republic together, while the CIS, a lot of the systems that were persuaded into the CIS, they have good intentions. It wasn't that was the problem. It was the leadership, Dooku, right? Y'all know what Dooku did in the wars of the Clone Wars, right? Very evil man. The Trade Federation didn't care. They were just trying to get as much money as they can. That's why they started this, right? They were putting money into the CIS so that they could save money in the long run, right? Very smart on everyone's angle. It makes sense.
Yeah.
But it works in the Palpatine's hand very, very skillfully. And that brings us to Act 5, which we see in Revenge of the Sith. So the Clone Wars lasted 3 years, right? It's a winning and losing battle for each side. They're trying to gain systems, trying to, lose systems, right? With all of this, Palpatine enacts his crazy plan. He thinks it's time, right? He sees that it's not at a stalemate, but he needs to do something, right? Because he can't just keep pumping clones and then pumping droids, right? So he has Grievous and Dooku push towards Coruscant, which is the capital of the Republic, right? So this is a very big deal. And then they try to kidnap Palpatine, right? Obviously, we know that Palpatine didn't really get kidnapped. But to the rest of the world or the galaxy, the Chancellor, the leader of the Republic, right? Because at this point, he is the leader of the Republic, right? If he falls, he's what's keeping the Republic together.
He has the emergency power. So that's like our president says, you know what, screw the rest of the branches. I'm in control right now, and everyone agrees with that.
It's not even
he gets
true. They voted that. That's what they wanted, and then he is given that. So he's taken into not custody, but taken as hostage by the CIS. Obviously, we see what happens with Anakin, Obi-Wan, and the Jedi and the Clone Army to protect Coruscant and get Palpatine back. In all of this, Dooku is killed. With Dooku being killed, that is a crippling damage to the CIS. He's a very big leader, right? He's the biggest reason, the big campaign to get systems to leave the Republic and join the CIS was done by Dooku, right? The Trade Federation was the money behind it. Dooku was the head. He was the campaigner, right? So with all of this, the Republic sees that it's a huge hit for Dooku. So they do their best. Palpatine and the Jedi agree to it. They try to siege all the Outer Rim planets and control the CIS to take back control, right?
All at once.
Masterfully, this spreads out the Jedi thin, right? All over the Outer Rim on different sieges, right? With all of this, Palpatine enacts Order 66, wiping out a majority of the Jedi, which is a huge blow to the Republic. While the Republic doesn't know this, they just think as the Jedi as traitors, right? But they were the protectors. They were sworn protectors. Also giving all the power for the clones to Palpatine, right? With this, we see behind the scenes, Anakin kills all the corporation leaders, the Trade Federation, all those guys behind the scenes, essentially wiping out all the leaders, because those guys were the last leaders. Grievous is dead, so there's no big CIS generals left. And all of the corporation leaders, there's no money to back it. So all the CIS is pretty much gone. So they're not completely gone, but pretty much gone.
It was pretty much the big heads were the CIS, the Jedi, the Senate, in the what's it called, the
Chancellor.
Chancellor, right? Jedi got wiped out. The Separatists got wiped out by Anakin. The Senate voted away their power, so it's all up to Chancellor Palpatine,
leaving him to create the first ever galactic empire. Right? He says the CIS is gone. We need to all join force. The Jedi betrayed us. We need to create the empire. With the Clone Wars just happening, a galactic civil war, the Senate agrees. They want peace. They want to have unity. That's what they were fighting in the Clone Wars for. They saw that the Jedi just betrayed them for power. That's what they saw, right? That's what they heard. So the empire is created, and Chancellor Palpatine enacts himself to be the first ever emperor, right? And that's kind of where we leave off on Act 5. We see that it quickly became, and you can see this in politics in our lifetime, or in just the history of government, right? It starts as a republic, it starts as democracy, and it quickly becomes something that it shouldn't have been, right? I mean, you can think of many different scenarios where it could have happened and where it did happen in our world. And that's kind of the politics behind 1 through 3 and Clone Wars. If you guys have any questions, let us know down in the comments. We are going to be going over the Empire and the Rebels, part 2. This will be on podcast and YouTube. So if you want to see any visuals, if you're on podcast, there will be some pictures and all of that up. And with that, you got anything else, Afton?
That's it for me.
All right. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.